The Batman Arkham series is home to many different certainties, but also a plethora of Easter eggs and mysteries that are often open to interpretation for players. One question that I've seen come up in my comments section in videos time after time, in anything really Batman related, is asking about my take on the whole mystery involving Batman himself at the end of Batman Arkham Knight. What actually happened to Bruce Wayne during and after the Knightfall Protocol? And while the answer has always been debated, and I do believe it was purposely left open for interpretation to a lot of players, I believe we now have a much clearer look, really more than ever before, behind the cowl at what actually happened to this character following the events of the game. Before we continue with the video, if you enjoyed today's video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing for more content. It helps us out a lot, and while you're at it, hitting that notification bell helps you stay informed on videos that we are actually uploading, as a lot of people don't get to see on this platform when we upload videos. We also do have a fun membership program which you can join by clicking the join button down below the video, and we do have several other channels including Degenerate Plays where we play through games together, hang out, and have fun podcast style, so I hope you'll check those out and we'll see you there. Now, there are two reasons why I decided to finally make this video, and I want to make these reasons known right now just so that there's no confusion. While Arkham Knight was very clearly intended to leave things open for your interpretation in many different ways, we did get a solid answer a long time ago in a very obscure place as to what this ending was meant to be and mean from Sefton Hill, one of the masterminds behind the Arkham series and co-founder of Rocksteady Studios himself. I had not actually seen this answer at the time. I stumbled across it about a week ago, and it was something that kind of made me want to talk about this whole thing. And secondly, some time ago, it was revealed that Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League would take place in the Batman Arkham universe. A lot of people have had their own opinions on the validity of that and why it's taking place there and changes with it, but it is revealed to take place there. And a recent trailer did blatantly show Batman in costume getting ready to go up against the Suicide Squad. It was also revealed that this game will feature the return of late Batman voice acting legend Kevin Conroy, and I do want to say finally, I guess there is a third secret reason I can't count past two, but the newest development at the time of recording that kind of made me think about this video is a minor spoiler for Batman issue 135 from Chip Zdarsky. This is an issue I talked about in a previous video, so if you want to watch that video, I made a video called The Best Batman Comic Book I've Read in Years, but I will talk a little bit about that issue here as it does tie into the Arkham universe just a little. And this is not a major spoiler from the book, but an appearance of a character that's worth mentioning does tie directly into the question of what happened after Knightfall in Batman Arkham. So with my cat purring in the background, I did want to give, a second here for anyone to jump ship if they are worried about the spoiler from the Batman comic. Batman from the Batman Arkham universe made an official appearance in the mainline Batman comic books. This is actually happening canon in the main DC Comics universe. Now, while the comics themselves have been a thing of questionable canonicity, I do believe that putting this Batman officially in the official, real, mainline comic book DC continuity makes it quite a bit more official. But even if it's not, there's a lot of other evidence to kind of tell us what happened since the end of the game. So we're going to put things in order, but this Batman appearance is shown to take place sometime after Knightfall and is going to tie into the overall narrative of what we talk about. So to really answer this question, we have to look at what Knightfall Protocol actually was, along with Batman's comments leading up to the events of the ending of Batman Arkham Knight. So what was the Knightfall Protocol? That's the first question. First, we know the Knightfall Protocol was intentional, as Batman specifically calls Alfred and asks him to make preparations for it to be enacted, and we know that Batman did not plan to return to his duties as Batman, at least in the same manner as he did them before, after the end of this night in Arkham Knight. There's a lot of words that sound very similar here, but essentially, this final night of being Batman, things were going to be different after it, and that ties into the Arkham Knight ending and the Knightfall Protocol itself. We know some of these things because of statements that Batman actually made along with actions that he took. And first, after saving Selina from the Riddler, Bruce pretty much distances himself from Selina right there. He comments that after tonight, Gotham will need something new to protect it, something worse. And I'm going to show you some of what he says here, but he pretty much kisses Selina Kyle goodbye and says that they won't really see each other again.
It means this is the end, Selina. It means we can't. I can't.
I will see you again, right?
No one will. Gotham needs something more, something worse to defend her. She needs a new myth. A legend more powerful than I can be right now. A legend that can only rise from the ashes of the Batman.
Secondly, this is one that I think we all saw, but not everybody knew the entirety of it. And that is the Penguin Most Wanted mission line. After concluding this Most Wanted mission line, or I should say near the end of it, before you take Penguin back to the GCPD lockup, Batman will talk to Nightwing one more time, and he will tell them that this is essentially the last time they will meet. He then makes Nightwing go out of his way to promise to protect Bloodhaven specifically. And this is a point we'll come back to in a little bit, because the Bloodhaven part is really emphasized here. He does not say protect Gotham, he does not say step up for me, he says, Dick, protect Bloodhaven.
I'm proud of you, Dick.
Are you feeling okay?
This is the end. This is the last time we meet.
Don't talk like that. All right, this won't stop you. Nothing stops you.
Keep Bloodhaven safe. Promise me.
It's okay, Bruce. I get it. You just don't want me hanging around, stealing the limelight.
Dick.
I won't let you down.
Now, there's a couple variations of the Knightfall ending that players can get in Arkham Knight, but we are going to be focusing on the 100% version. Let's be honest, Batman would try to finish up as much as possible before the end of the night. That's why we're focusing on the 100% version, and this ending unlocks additional story material. So you're actually most incentivized to do it or to look it up on YouTube. You know, guys like Batman Arkham Videos who have been, sharing this stuff with the community forever. You either probably did this ending if you played the game, or if you didn't have time or patience to do it, you probably saw someone like, that channel do it. When everything's said and done with the story, Bruce removes his cowl, calls Jim Gordon, and he lets him know that Gotham's now safe. He then leaves the GCPD rooftop and remotely detonates the bat signal with explosives, destroying it. After that, reporters and crowds are seen gathered outside of Wayne Manor. We've talked about it before. If you look very closely, you can also see the Calendar Man is in the crowd here as well, which ties in a little bit to an Easter egg from Batman Arkham City, where if you actually set the date to or visit Calendar Man on the date of the founding of Rocksteady Studios, he talks about how he was there at the beginning of Batman's story and he'll be there at the end, which is sort of a double meaning message, kind of Rocksteady talking, and also Calendar Man plays into the fact that Rocksteady was there at the beginning of the story and at the end. Also, Calendar Man was there in the very beginning with Arkham Origins, and he will be there in the very final scene with Batman, kind of, at the manor. So anyway, we got that little aside out of the way. I just think it's interesting. But after that, when you see these crowds, right? Batman lands in front of Wayne Manor very obviously. He's just very much not trying to hide who he is because everybody knows who he is. He was unmasked by Scarecrow and everybody saw it. So he lands outside of Wayne Manor, but inside of the gate on the property, and he also enters the manor unmasked. There's a real reason that he does this, because he doesn't want people to assume that Bruce Wayne did not die this night. So that's worth mentioning. And yes, that is inferring a meaning, but we know Batman is a planner, and we know that he was planning this event. If he really didn't care that people saw Bruce Wayne enter the manor, he would have worn the cowl. He left the cowl behind, he dropped it, and he left, right? There's a reason why he did that at GCPD, why he takes the cowl off. There's a reason why he leaves it off when he goes into the manor. So all the news reporters and all the people see Bruce Wayne enter Wayne Manor in a Batman suit. While he's entering, he talks to Alfred, who asks Bruce if he's sure he wants to do this, and Bruce, Batman, says yes. It's the only way to protect them. And we can infer that he's talking about Gotham and also about the Bat family here. It doesn't really matter who you think he's talking about. Either way, it's pretty much everybody. Seconds later, Wayne Manor is pretty much lit up in explosions, but the explosions are not big enough to harm anyone outside of the manor. That's important. If you watch this cutscene, the explosions go off, but they look very controlled. They don't look like something that some supervillain would do. They're not there to cause the most damage possible. They're there to blow the living daylights out of Wayne Manor. So Wayne Manor is just lit up in explosions, but those explosions are not big enough to go outside of the gate of Wayne Manor. None of the news reporters, nobody in this crowd is harmed. They are all fine. They are all left 100% intact with 0 injuries in order to watch the death of Batman. I've seen people try and say that before that this is not Bruce doing this, but I truly believe that if it wasn't, somebody probably would have been hurt. You really think that some of these supervillains would care to control the explosions enough to make sure they don't leave the manor grounds, go outside the gate and hurt someone outside? No, this is definitely a Batman planned thing that we're going to get into a little more going in. We then actually see Gordon talking about how the Batman died, which ties directly into the beginning of the game, and he goes on to talk about how nobody knows who really killed Bruce Wayne, but despite having hundreds of suspects, it was never discovered who did it. There was really, now I will say, GCPD does not always do the best job ever, but Jim Gordon leading an investigation on why his best friend was murdered, that guy was going to fight tooth and nail to find out. And I truly believe that if it was anyone other than Batman who did that explosion, they would find him. Gordon then asks, sort of hypothetically, who will protect Gotham now that Batman is dead. And 2 criminals we see attempt to rob a wealthy couple in an alley, but a mysterious figure shows up, levitates above the rooftops, and then swoops down on the criminals in a fiery effect, which is similar to an effect that we've seen before. It's one that we saw when Scarecrow was subjected to his own fear toxin and confronted by Batman. This effect and the figure that we see are both extremely similar to the nightmare version of Batman seen by Scarecrow during that scene, and it's also similar in some ways to the version of Batman that Joker sees in his delusions when recounting his history to Harleen Quinzel in Batman Arkham Origins. Now you can say, well, Batman Arkham Origins was not made by Rocksteady, but there were intentional callbacks to Batman Arkham Origins in this game, including Deathstroke talking about when Batman and Deathstroke first met, and of course the events with Firefly tying directly into this game and him mentioning the fight at the bridge with Bruce all those years ago. Now, all of these things are worth noting, and we will circle back around again to some of them in a minute. Like I said before, they are all going to tie together. Right now, we're just listing things off. I also do want to mention that the Batman scene here, the Batman scene levitating above this alleyway and swooping down on these criminals, he is very similar to the Batman that we also see in the concept art gallery of Batman Arkham Knight, known as Nightmare Batman, with the description of this piece being just, is it real? A question that we will get into in this video. So following this, we know a few things that we've already established. First off, Knightfall was an intentional protocol that Batman asked Alfred to prepare to enact. It was not an accident. We also know that part of that protocol was the destruction of the bat signal, meaning that Knightfall did use explosives. He blew up the bat signal, which also means it would not be a stretch to say that he had a similar plan in place for the manor, controlled explosions. The destruction of the bat signal also meant that nobody at GCPD could really summon Batman directly for help through the signal afterwards. He was cutting himself off from Jim Gordon directly and saying goodbye to him, and we know that Bruce was going around doing the same thing with his allies, such as his comments to Dick Grayson and those to Selina Kyle. So with these things known and some of these points in common, some theorize that Batman simply ended his own life. He just exited the planet on returning to the manor. It was like, well, game over, man, I'm done, and he ended it. However, I don't think that explanation really makes any sense, and it's horrible from a writing standpoint. It's very bad. There's nothing actually leading up to that. Bruce never really shows any interest in terminating his own existence. He's very self-destructive in terms of being Batman, and he's very much willing to give himself up and his life up, but not in this way. Also, the explanation doesn't make sense if only for the sole reason that if he were to end his own life, he wouldn't kill Alfred. It's just not something that lines up with this version of who Batman is, especially given the fact that this Batman goes so far out of his way to make sure he personally doesn't kill anyone ever. It's almost a compulsion for him to preserve life instead of take it in this continuity, and it wouldn't stand up to reason that he would just end Alfred's life and be like, well, buddy, you're going with me. That's just not how this Bruce operates. I mean, he was fighting tooth and nail to keep Alfred alive after Alfred technically died in Arkham Origins just to resuscitate him. This is pretty much his on-Earth father at this point, and it's just not something that he would do. We also know that Batman had a sort of plan for a new legend and new myth to, as he said it best, rise from the ashes of Batman, from what he said to Catwoman. Finally, we know that another Batman is seen in the Knightfall Protocol ending. It's a nightmarish version of the Caped Crusader. So who is this Batman? Now, in order to answer this question, it's easiest to look first at who it really can't be plausibly. I want to start by taking a look at Azrael. This might be the most common accepted answer outside of Bruce in terms of, well, it's got to be Azrael, right? Because during his side quest, he comments to Batman that before the night is through, the fire will consume Batman, and that Gotham will need a new savior, a new guardian, and a new Batman. This writing is very foreshadowing, but not in the way that Rocksteady originally made it look like it was going to be. Yes, Azrael believes that he is going to be the new Batman when he says this, but we find out by the end of his mission chain that he isn't really mentally in a place to be Batman at all. He's either restrained and arrested by Batman in the more bad ending, or in the, as I say, superior choice ending. He lays down his weapons, acknowledges that he's been brainwashed by the Order of Saint Dumas, and he goes off to deal with them. Either way, he's not mentally in the position to take up the mantle of Batman that he thought he would be in, nor is he shown to be actually present in Gotham City anymore in the near future. There's really no references to him coming back in any of the DLC Arkham episodes that take place following Batman Arkham Knight, nor is there anything to point to the fact that he would even really be interested in still becoming Batman at this point. He is going off to deal with his own journey. Secondly, we have Robin. Now, Robin never expressed any interest in becoming the new Batman, and in fact, I would say that Barbara is going out of her way to make sure that Tim doesn't.
How's it going?
Slow.
Tim, stop that. You're not him.
So everyone keeps telling me.
Good. I'm glad you're not. You can be better, I know it.
Tim's in the process of marrying Barbara near the ending of Arkham Knight, and Jim is actually even seen bringing the ring for that ceremony during the end of the game. We also do get to see a post-marriage Tim and Barbara during the Arkham DLC episode, A Flip of the Coin, where Robin is still Robin. He's not going out of his way to be Batman, he's just Robin. And when he does show characteristics that are somewhat Batman-like, his wife shows concern about it because she doesn't want him to become Batman. She wants him to be who he is, Robin. And a big part of the storyline of A Flip of the Coin is essentially the idea that Robin will stay Robin, and Robin doesn't necessarily need Batman to exist. He can still do this on his own, although it is a bit harder for him. That DLC is pretty much Robin proving his worth as Robin, and that he can do it himself, very similar to what he did actually all the way back in Harley Quinn's Revenge. Now, Nightwing's another surefire contender, right? I mean, he's been shown to step into Batman's shoes in the comics when needed, except Bruce already made Nightwing borderline promise to not become Batman. He really did. In their final exchange, Bruce makes Nightwing promise to return to Bloodhaven and keep that city safe in particular. In Bruce's eyes and in Dick's eyes, Bloodhaven is Nightwing's city. Nightwing is not Batman. Nightwing is his own hero, and Dick Grayson would not go against the dying wishes of his father, essentially, and abandon Bloodhaven, especially after the game makes such a big deal about this essentially deathbed promise that Bruce asks Dick to make. He wouldn't go back on that. That would be very out of character for Dick Grayson, and it would also be very out of character for Dick Grayson to act in the way that we see the Batman at the end of this game. Again, by the way, that's a problem with all of these essentially, is that even if you could reason out that one of these people would be this new Batman, the way that they present themselves does not really make sense in conjunction with who they are as a person in the game. Finally, there's Jason Todd. This is it, right? I mean, like, we clearly see this Batman swoop down with guns, right? Oh, wait, no, we don't. The Red Hood DLC takes place following the ending of Batman Arkham Knight, and Jason's now adopted the moniker of Red Hood, and he's given up the Arkham Knight identity and persona, but he's still a little nutty. Now, it would be very bizarre writing overall to say that Jason went from Arkham Knight to Red Hood to Batman. It's a very short amount of time for Arkham Knight to be becoming Red Hood, and then also to be becoming Batman. There's also really no build-up, no anything in the game towards Jason becoming Batman. And we still see that very clearly Jason is killing after this. It's just not really working out from a writing perspective, and there's nothing really to support that angle. I've seen other ideas floated around about who it could be, but none of them make any sense, and some are downright ridiculous, which no offense to the people who believe these, but like there's just no basis to say that it's them. So for example, I saw one argument try to be that it could be Damian Wayne, right? But Damian is never shown to exist in the Arkhamverse, and before you say it, yes, I know there was a pitch of the Batman Arkham Beyond game later that would involve Damian as a Batman. That game never materialized. That game never came out. And it was going to be set years in the future, this whole Project Sabbath thing. Now, if you do the math on Bruce's little night of fun with Talia al Ghul, Damian would not be old enough to be Nightmare Batman at this point. Even if he does actually exist in this timeline, he would not be old enough to be a grown man Batman. It just doesn't work. I've also seen some people try to make the argument that this could just be Batman Beyond himself, like Terry. But again, there's no evidence that that character even exists in this universe, as much as I wish that he did. I would love a Terry Batman Beyond game in the Arkhamverse with like an underground old man Bruce hiding out after faking his death and, raising this surrogate son. But this isn't that. It's not my wet dream of a game. It's just we have to work with the reality we were given. Finally, I've seen people trying to make a weird argument that maybe the people of Gotham are using some form of Scarecrow's gas to terrorize criminals themselves and pretend that Batman's still around. I don't know who made this up, but it makes no sense. It would affect random civilians too. Also, it's not like you're gonna go around inoculating random civilians, but like that guy's gonna be a criminal, we're not gonna inoculate him. This just doesn't work. So it's worth noting, like, the question, is it real? The question asked actually by the concept art gallery in Batman Arkham Knight, is this even a real Batman? And we do know that this is a real person. How do we know that? Well, the mysterious figure known as the Ghost is referenced in the post-game Arkham Episodes Catwoman DLC, along with a bit of a sly reference in the Flip of the Coin DLC.
Hey, where's Johnny?
Ghost got him a few days back, down by the docks.
For God's sake, guys, I'm sick of hearing about this ghost. There ain't no ghost, okay?
Now, there's going to be a couple of references that kind of establish who the Ghost could be. But first, we need to take a look at the fact that the Grey Ghost actually did exist in some form or another in this continuity as an entertainment property. The Grey Ghost, if you follow Batman the Animated Series, was one of Bruce Wayne's, I would say, childhood figures of inspiration that inspired him to become Batman in the DC animated universe. And we do also know that the Batman Arkham universe, while it's not the same universe, it's heavily inspired by the DCAU itself. So we know that this DLC is actually establishing that the Ghost is going around basically doing Batman's job. It's going around taking people out. Then we are also kind of given a little bit of a joking hint at what this character, the Ghost, could be going for. And it's actually in the Arkham episode Catwoman's Revenge, where we do hear people musing about what could be going on, where they mention, what if it's Batman's ghost?
Batman's gone. Who's after us?
What if it's a ghost?
What if it's Batman's ghost?
Oh, God.
Now, this idea of it being Batman's ghost is something that we're going to kind of circle back to again here a little bit, but I do want to tease the idea right there, because guess who is supposed to be dead to everybody? Bruce Wayne. Now, why would it still be Bruce Wayne that's Batman? The easiest answer for me would be to tell you that the return of Batman in the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League game confirms this, and the fact that he's being voiced by Kevin Conroy, that's enough proof that Bruce survived the events of the game and continued being Batman. Well, we're done here, right? No, there's a little more to it than that. While that is probably enough proof for some, there's a lot more to it. There's also the fact that Bruce made Nightwing promise to essentially not become Batman and stay in Bloodhaven, at least for the most part.
promised me.
There's the fact that we just ruled out any other logical in-game explanation of who this actual Nightmare Batman could be, and there's the fact that this Batman, this ghost vigilante, as they're referred to, both on the Arkham Wiki and also by thugs in the game, is going around and actually doing things and looks a lot like both Nightmare Batman versions that we see in Origins and in Arkham Knight. This Batman also appears in a fear-induced haze that is pretty much Scarecrow's fear toxin, and in all but confirmation. I mean, like, it just is the same almost exact visual effect, and it's very close to the same thing that Crane himself sees when he is in shock and in fear after being injected with his own toxin. Now, who would be going around taking out criminals? Who would be going around pretending to be a ghost? Who would be going around kind of spreading a new myth that the ghost of Batman is alive and well? Who would be going around spreading the myth that this ghost of Batman is alive and well and attacking criminals in the street? Who would be preying on the superstitious and cowardly lot of criminals by building up a new myth that rose from the ashes of the Batman and was planned out? None other than Bruce Wayne himself. Bruce had to deal with this Scarecrow toxin, by the way, many times throughout his career, and he just spent an entire game story getting massively dosed with it. I mean, it's borderline shocking that Bruce himself is not in like drug rehab after how much he was getting dosed with this gas over the course of Batman Arkham Asylum and Batman Arkham Knight. He's had to work with it and its effects firsthand, feeling them. Who would be more qualified to work with Scarecrow's toxin other than Scarecrow? Well, Batman. The man who just keeps getting stabbed with it. If anyone knew how to dilute and use this fear gas, this fear toxin, to make it still safe for consumption while also producing similar effects on these criminals as the effects were on Bruce Wayne, it would be Bruce himself. Another detail that I never actually knew before looking into only occurs if you take Penguin into GCPD after Bruce's identity is revealed to the world. Now, this little exchange is something very unique that I never noticed, but I truly believe it helps solidify the fact that Bruce is still around, still adopting some kind of identity and doing the work of Batman, because he says this.
Face it, after tonight, Batman's dead in the water. You better find a new costume, old boy. What'll be next? Oh, I know. How about a squirrel?
You'll see.
When asked basically what kind of costume he's going to wear now, oh, maybe you should dress up like a squirrel, that kind of joke that, obviously Oswald Cobblepot is, directing towards Bruce. Bruce says, you'll see. He doesn't say, well, I'm going to end my life. He doesn't say, well, I quit. He says, you'll see. He very obviously implies that he will still be around after tonight, but in a different way. Now, this leads us to circle back to my mention of Batman issue 135 and a major appearance that happens in this issue, as that appearance is of the Bruce Wayne Arkham Batman. In this issue, the mainline comics Batman is following a sane version of the Joker, Red Mask, across the multiverse, trying to stop him from creating more Jokers in other timelines or making Jokers stronger. It's actually a very good comic book. I broke it down very simplistically there, but it's genuinely one of the best comics I've read in years, and I highly recommend you check it out. During one of his visits in the multiverse, Arkham Batman meets the mainline comics Batman and tells the mainline comics Batman counterpart that he always had sort of an itch to just let Joker die and let his madness disappear. We know that this is Bruce, as he mentions that the Joker still got into his head even after dying, and that Joker needed to be exorcised from Batman's mind. He also mentions that his identity was made public and his life was over. He then asks that the mainline comics Batman try to make sure that the Joker stays dead, as the same Joker is going around across the multiverse, creating Jokers and raising dead Jokers from the grave to re-terrorize the worlds of Batman across the multiverse. Now, while the Batman Arkham comics themselves all have, like I said before, very questionable canonicity to the Arkham universe, it's worth noting that the Arkham Batman showing up in the mainline comics is a very big deal, and it just so happens that he showed up the same year that Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League was expected to launch before being delayed. We also get to see a somewhat disheveled and disorganized looking Batcave behind him in the small page we see him in. Now, we don't know if this Batcave is makeshift or if it's the original Batcave under Wayne Manor, as that very well could, basically withstand an explosion of Knightfall. But we do see cords running openly across the floor in a messy fashion, and Batman in a fairly worn down looking suit, which appears to be the suit he wore in or after Arkham City. I've seen people before say, well, this clearly isn't canon because why would he switch suits? Batman is known in the comics for switching suits back and forth all the time. I don't really think what suit he is in means anything. I do think you could argue the canonicity of this though, because of the fact that the Arkham comics have gone back and forth, but I will say that this is really the first mainline mention we've had of Arkham Batman following the events of Arkham Knight, where he's actually talking about things that happened in Arkham Knight, like having to exorcise the Joker from his mind. Even the Arkham Knight comics and all of the other comics that had supposedly tied into the Batman Arkham series, they never actually went really much after the events of Arkham Knight and dealt with where Batman went or what happened to him. These are direct references to the end of the Batman Arkham Knight game. If you think, well, maybe that's not canon, I do want to remind you that this Batman will appear again in that game, that Kevin Conroy is voice acting Batman in that game, and I do want to talk about something that I never actually saw when it happened. Now, during a AMA regarding Batman Arkham Knight, Rocksteady Studio co-founder Sefton Hill was being asked questions about the Arkham series, and he said in regards to Batman Arkham Knight, "I liked the very end. When Batman is left with no other option, he still manages to find a way out, to become an even more badass version of Batman. How cool is that?" Now, I've always personally fallen under the literary camp of, obviously the author intent and their word matters, but so does the fan response, fan theory, all these things. I think they all tie together very much. I don't think one is necessarily the entire gospel. You need to look no farther than the canon of something like Assassin's Creed, which contradicts itself in terms of the canonicity of Watch Dogs, to see that sometimes what the author says doesn't match up with what they made. But I do think that all of these pieces of proof together, plus Sefton Hill himself answering and saying that this is Batman finding a way out and becoming a more badass version of Batman. I think all these things together very well tie kind of a nice little bow around the ending of Arkham Knight and show us who this ghost really is, who this ghost of Batman truly could be. It's just Batman. He convinced everyone that he died. He essentially showed everyone him dying. He went on national television and blew himself up. His mask was off, I believe intentionally, so that nobody could claim it was a body double. The explosion did not leave the Wayne Manor grounds and hurt any reporters because he tries not to hurt any innocent people. The fact that Calendar Man was still there at his end still works because this is technically the end of Batman, but the birth of the ghost of Batman. And that's the thing is, we do see the ghost referred to as the ghost of Batman jokingly and scaringly in a scared manner by one of the Riddler thugs in the actual Catwoman's Revenge DLC. The idea was floated around always that this was the ghost of Batman. And while it is not literally the ghost of Batman because he did not die, Bruce Wayne essentially pulled one last trick. What he did was he eliminated Batman and Bruce Wayne and made people think that he was such a crazy nutjob that he still haunts the streets of Gotham, using a somehow diluted version of Scarecrow's fear toxin in order to patrol these streets, and he also has separated himself humanly from his human allies, therefore providing distance from them so that they are all kept safe, like he said he wanted for the safety of everyone in the Knightfall Protocol while walking into Wayne Manor. Everybody, including the Bat family outside of probably Alfred, think that Bruce died. They don't have contact with him after this, according to them, and also according to what he wanted. None of them had reason to become Batman. None of them really had an interest in becoming Batman. And yet this ghost as it's been teased of Batman, is still roaming the streets of Gotham, keeping people safe. And I really believe that the fact that we get to see him stop a crime similar to what would have created him in the first place goes even further to show that this is Bruce Wayne. Not in terms of him singling out that crime to find it, but in terms of a, I guess I would say, literary rhyming with history. That Batman himself is dead, and yet Batman just prevented a tragedy that could have created another person with a lot of trauma and past horror and baggage. He saved that couple in the alley because that's what Batman does. So I guess that's kind of my think piece on who this Batman is. I know other YouTubers have created videos about this before. I'm gonna be honest with you, I did not watch those, not because I don't care, but because I wanted to make my own and kind of talk about that with all of the information, proof, conjecture, I don't know, all of it together, all of it wound up together in a little bow, kind of leading into the next chapter of this Arkham universe with Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, and probably what will be one of the final performances of Kevin Conroy, may he rest in peace. Now, I'm not sure how his appearance in Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League will fit in with the Ghost persona, and the reason I don't know how it's going to tie in is the fact that we see Batman standing here very clearly Batman. Maybe he's convinced everyone that he died so much that now the ghost of Batman can just go around and do whatever he wants. Maybe he doesn't need the fear toxin, I don't know. It does seem a little bit like they're playing fast and loose with the canonicity of this game, just in terms of that, in the terms of, well, Deadshot now is not the same guy, the other guy was a fake Deadshot, this Deadshot killed him. I don't really know, okay? I don't want to call the game lazy before it's out. Let's just wait and see what's going on with that. I have no idea how that's going to tie in. But this is where I personally think Batman has been since the events of Batman Arkham Knight. At some point, he either joined up with the Justice League, obviously, or he already was involved with them and it's just not really mentioned in the mainline games because we do get plenty of references to other superheroes in them. But we'll have to wait and see how they reconcile that with the game when it launches. I just think it's very interesting to kind of look at Arkham as a wrapped up package following the events of Arkham Knight and see where he was there. Now, I'm losing my voice, so I better end it here, but I did want to say that my wife Jill does have a very wonderful shop, enchantedglamour.com, that's enchantedglamor.com, or magicaljill.com, where she sells all kinds of fun comic book resin pieces from repurposed, recycled comic books that were getting thrown out, tossed in landfills, and gotten rid of. She has turned them into very cool art pieces that I, think you should check out if you want to help support the channel. She also does have all kinds of really cool jewelry as well that some are inspired by different fictional properties, some are not, so I hope you'll check that out. We do have several other channels, including The King of Creepy, which is a very new horror narration channel that I started, and we do have Degenerate Plays, which is a Let's Play channel where we play through games podcast style, where I hope to see you. If you liked today's video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content. The join button is down below if you're interested in joining our channel memberships and getting access to exclusive stuff, and I hope you all have a fantastic day. As always, everyone, stay shui.